All right. I've been telling you, if you follow my Facebook page and my LinkedIn sites, as well as Instagram and all of my other social media sites, then you will know my guest this morning is Natascha, Natascha Hardee, Hardee. For Natascha Hardee, the journey of spirituality, health, and fitness has been her lifestyle for over 5 decades. As a visionary, this certified coach, trained dancer, and occupational therapist seeks to inspire the 50-plus woman to embrace her femininity. When we say 50-plus, we don't mean just 50 women. We mean like age 50 and above. That's what we're talking about here. Natascha has elevated her practice to become a global speaker and expert to educate women about the changes that occur in their bodies as they get older, so they can learn how to ride the waves and acclimate in order to have a juicy, passionate sex life, because age is just a number, and I could not agree more. Interestingly enough, I just heard that yesterday. I was in a store, and the young lady behind the counter said those very words: age is just a number. So we welcome to the Reading Circle microphones none other than Natascha Hardee. Natascha, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to the audience. How's everyone feeling? Happy Saturday to you all.
I know that's right. Because it's like, for me, I try to, like, every day is happy day. Like, yesterday was Friday. I was like, yes, it's Friday. Now today is Saturday. Yes, it's Saturday. So I could not agree with you more in terms of happy Saturday. For those of you listening, again, let somebody know this is an interview they definitely want to hear. Natascha calls it sexability. So that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. But I'll tell you what, Natascha, before we even jump into that, let's kind of roll the tape back a little bit. It's like, how did you get into this field? How did this all get started?
Well, I am a multi-certified fitness professional, and as you mentioned, I've been in this health and wellness industry for over 5 decades, for most of my life. And somewhere along the line, I started figuring out, what can I bring that's different? And so I decided to think about, hey, people get to be physically fit. As I got older, I started seeing, people's bodies breaking down and not as fit as it was when they were younger. So I was like, people get to be fit to have sex. They're not going to stop having sex. But how about we eliminate the cramping and the back pains and the tight muscles and all of that gets involved in it? And so I said, let me come up with something related to physical fitness and sex. And that was the beginning of this journey.
Last week with my guest, I was talking about, she had MS, multiple sclerosis, and it was something else she had. But we talked about how important movement and exercise is to the body. And now this week, here we are talking, and you're going to, for the most part, be talking about the same issue in terms of us moving. We've become a society that does a lot of sitting. And that works actually to our detriment. I mean, I know. And for those of us who work in offices, this, that, and the other, we sit a lot throughout our day. I mean, we've to the point now where our watches will chime and say, look, it's time to get up. You got to move a little bit. But it is important. And I don't think many people connect the dots between sex and exercise. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit this morning. And so, okay, which came first? Were you already doing the physical fitness piece and then added the sexability? Or how did you begin? How did you connect that? That's where I'm going with that question.
So I'm a trained dancer, and I started dancing and exercising with my mom. I started exercising with my mom when I was a toddler. And I came up with this because from transitioning from dancing into fitness, I was a fitness professional for a number of years. And then I went into this whole sexability and talking about it and speaking. So it's been a lifelong journey of fitness, health and wellness, vegetarianism, and shifting back and forth from one thing to the next. Does that answer your question?
It does, actually, because my next question would be when you incorporated or began now introducing the sex piece in it, what was the reception like, particularly in the beginning, and is it any different now?
So, yeah, when I first had this concept, I had some people who wanted to support me in doing it. However, it was a little perverted. It wasn't really the way I wanted it to be, kind of more along the lines of education and fitness. It was more sexual, and that's not the direction I want this to go in. I wanted to be more related to educating people how to care for themselves in reference to health and wellness.
Correct. And see, now that's where, and I was saying earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, and I even opened up a couple minutes ago, where folks, and partly what you just said is why people react the way they act, because death, sex, and some other topics they consider taboo. And partly the reason is because it's been taken out of context, where now you're talking about educating. Because again, I don't think many of us, or not enough of us, really understand the connection between sex and health. That if you're not healthy, or if your body's not healthy or functioning right, that sex is kind of like out the window to a degree when it doesn't have to be. And if you can keep yourself healthy, there's no reason why you can't have a healthy sex life even as you age. That's one of the questions my doctor asks me whenever she's doing my annual exam is how are things going in the sex life, so forth and so on. So there's a connection there between health and sex, but yet many people will try to take it down the road that you said folks that wanted to support you wanted to take it.
Yes. And it's interesting that you mentioned your doctor asked you how is it going in the sex life, because studies show that most doctors do not talk to their patients about sex after the age of 35. So it's most healthcare professionals, and I want to stress most healthcare professionals do not speak to their patients about sex or sex activity after their quote-unquote baby-making age in their 30s.
Wow. Now, because a few years ago, and she's a very good doctor. My doctor, I have a female doctor. She's very good. And I was pre-diagnosed some years ago with pre-diabetes. I was diagnosed rather with pre-diabetes. So part of that, I think she's asking too, to see whether or not that disease, if you will, is impacting anything. But at the same time, she's a very good doctor. I think she would ask that anyway, because those are the kind of conversations we have. And even that, again, people get crazy if the doctor would ask them that question. A lot of people wouldn't be receptive to that. Right.
That's a lot of that comes from society, and because we are not okay with sex. Sex has been treated as a taboo topic, like you said, like as death has been, and also talking about money, talking about age.
Right.
There's a number of topics that we could go into about that, and it's normal. We spend money every day. People are dying every day. People are having sex multiple times a week. Why aren't we talking about it? And the fact that people are not talking about it is impacting people's lives. For example, the rise in STDs in the older population. Right. It's impacting them. Also, it's impacting people's health. So if people have chronic disease, there's a way they get to understand how to have sex and have a normal, healthy sex life. Because just because they have a chronic disease, cancer or diabetes or hypertension, arthritis, they get to have some support on how to move forward with it. If they have back pains or they're not flexible, we want to support them in having sex in the most comfortable way possible.
Correct.
to maximize their experience without suffering.
Correct. And there's another.
After it.
That's right. And there's another piece to this too that I think people need to understand is that literally the physical act of sex is healthy for your body. There are things that are released throughout the sexual act that actually help the body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I will speak into that. Serotonins are released, and that's the feel-good hormone, and that's released during sex. And it's important that we experience and have those hormones flowing through our bodies. Also, sex can improve your sleep, reduce stress. It acts as a form of exercise. So why not? And if people have vaginal dryness, which is what occurs after 50, after menopause, after the menopausal process, it also supports reducing vaginal dryness, because when people are sexually active, the glands are working and releasing fluid into the vagina, so it reduces the vaginal dryness.
No, that's correct. I mean, because again, like for men with prostate, a lot of times the doctors will tell you in terms of like your prostate, you have to keep that active. Otherwise, it could, result or turn into prostate cancer. So they're constantly encouraging, try to keep it moving, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And see, again, I'm bringing all these things up because a lot of people, again, because the mind goes to the gutter, they automatically reduce sex to something that it really is not intended to be. But at the same time, did we lose? Natasha, did we drop?
We had a call drop.
Okay, are you okay? You on the cell?
I'm on the cell, yes.
Okay, so it's possible to happen. Okay, not the first time. I didn't realize you dropped till I saw the phone light flashing again. But what I was saying was, people, because their mind goes to the gutter, they don't realize, again, the sex is a natural function, just like any other function of the body. And again, the benefits of it. And a lot of times, the very thing that sex can bring about, folks who are depressed or whoever, they're shying away from it when that's the very thing that could help them. You were talking a couple of minutes ago about the serotonins and other fluids that are released. Like a lot of times people will go the opposite direction. And sex is actually something that can help them. But because a lot of times you get far, well, all you think about is sex. Well, no. And it's not just a matter of all you think about is sex. There's a lot that goes with it in terms of relationships and everything. There's a lot connected there.
Yes. And when you talk about this sexual health at this stage of life, people are, when they get older, we have life experience. So life happens. You may lose a partner, or a person may get divorced, or they separate from their lifelong partner for whatever reason. And having a mate, having sex, helps people's mental state. It builds connection, relationship, and intimacy. It's very supportive to people's lifestyle and quality of life. We want to have that.
No, that's absolutely right. And it's interesting that you're targeting the 50-plus crew. Because I'm not even saying just the women. It's the men and the women, 50-plus crew. Because there are changes. I mean, there are changes between like your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, so forth and so on. I laugh because I think back years and years ago with my father-in-law at the time. This is going back years ago that I had to laugh because, when the guys get together, they do all this so-called bragging. So there was one guy, this was years ago whenever, I guess they were, because I was only in my 30s then at the time. I guess they were in their 50s or 60s then. And one of them said something about they were just as good as they are now as they were then. And my father-in-law said, well, if you just as good as you are now as you was then, you must not have been much then. Because there's no way in the world.
called him out.
Yeah, I always remembered that because it's like, no, it's not. That's not to say that it's still, I mean, it has its own stages.
Yes.
But it's not the same.
And I will share this with you. One of the reasons why my focus is women, I speak with men too. However, I know that I believe that when you educate a woman, you educate a nation.
Correct.
And when a woman is with her partner, she's able to teach her partner or share with her partner what she's learned, because the stuff that I teach, the information I give people is people related. So it can be spread to both men and women. When I do the pelvic floor exercises with the women, that's something they could do with the men, which supports with erectile dysfunction.
Correct.
And the communication, connection exercises, the intimacy exercises, all of that they can share with their partner, the stretching exercises, everything that I do can transfer over to the male partner or their female partner. And the sex information is not limited to women. It impacts male, female, gay, straight, LGBTQ, and everyone in between. So these matters that I'm discussing are impacting multiple sex preferences, lifestyles, ages. There's no limit. Sex is being done from teens all the way up to people depart from here.
Correct. And see, let's talk a little bit about the views of sex between men and women. Like, men, for the most part, according to research, are very visual and don't necessarily have to have the intimacy connection, versus a woman, whenever she's engaging in sex, she's totally relational. It's a heart thing for her, versus for a man, it's a sight thing. Talk a little bit about that, if at all.
Yes. So, as you said, men are visual. However, the men get to make love to the woman's brain.
Right.
It's a process that occurs throughout the day. The love notes, the compliments, the gentle touches, the having experiences together. Like, for example, taking a shower together, watching a romantic movie, or sharing a television show they love, cooking a meal together, going for a walk in a park, dancing. All of these activities are they romance the woman. It massages her brain, so to speak, so that it gets her in the mood. And you have sensual massages and all kinds of, deep conversation. Women have to be stimulated from their brain.
Right.
And then that softens her up to have or be open to having sex with her partner. And a lot of that gets lost. And I'll say that, for example, if a couple they're married for years, they have kids, and they may be, and this has been shared with me, they may be, for example, told, getting a quickie here, getting a quickie there, getting it in, getting wherever they can. And then they become empty nesters. So now it's a whole different approach
right.
to having sex or having a lovemaking session, because now the kids are not in the house. You can have sex in multiple places in the house, different times of the day or night or whatever you can explore, like you did when they can explore like they did when they didn't have children.
Right.
So that's an option.
So absolutely. So again, there's a whole lot more to sex than just. And I was saying earlier, people don't realize how much they're exposed to sex, because in advertising and marketing, for the most part, everything is sold through sex. For the most part, like I was sharing how there's this old book called Subliminal Seduction. And it really gets into how even in your print ads, the word or the letters S, E, and X are embedded in the ads in different places. And your subconscious is picking up on that. So even talked about that. But then we get into like, do we ever get to a point where we're over sexualized? Because it's kind of like two extremes. You got those who are like, oh my God, we'll never talk about it. No, no, no. And then you have those that it's just overstimulated. Do we ever get to that?
Yes, it's, again, like you said, in the ads, you especially the alcohol industry,
correct,
you always see someone in a bikini or a G-string, or the men have their shirts off. It's all very salacious. And this topic is so sensitive. I like to have fun with it as well as keep it light, because
right,
it can very quickly go to the negative side, or people can be offended by it. And there is a lot of over-sexualized in television, in the videos, music videos. It's a lot, and that we get to be present to, so that you don't get sucked into that, or
right,
people, the association of sex and alcohol, or the association of however they're trying to associate sex with whatever product they're selling, when it can be a whole different, healthier approach to it, where it's not perverted or it's overdone, where women are over-sexualized and men aren't.
correct. There is a statement, was it Bob Proctor, I think, in the video or in the film The Secret, and I think I'm going to paraphrase him, but what he says is, fire can cook your meal or it can burn your house down. And the fire can cook your meal or it can kill you, yes. All right? Sex is the same way. It's kind of like it's a wonderful thing, or at the same time, it could be deadly.
Yeah.
So folks really need to be mindful and conscientious and intentional about, and that's what you do. That's what you're helping people. You're helping people bring these things to mind, express these things. What do you do with a partner who's been abused, who just like is frigid, or just sex is off the table based on the experiences as a child or a teen? Mm-hmm. If, say, for example, if a woman is raped, or a man is raped for that matter, and now it's kind of like that just experience is just like absolutely not, because that conjures up too many bad memories. What happens in those instances? Again,
and those are situations that are very delicate for the partner who has experienced the trauma, and that person it would be important for that person to seek support, mental health counseling, some sort of trauma counseling, and the partner of the traumatized person gets to do research themselves about the trauma, so that they can be a loving, supportive energy for their partner. And I believe that will support the individual in opening up and having a space for healing, for intimacy, for romance, for communication, for deep connection. Because when someone has been violated in that way, there's a level of sensitivity
right.
that gets to be had by their partner.
Right.
So the person that's been traumatized doesn't feel attacked or violated during the sexual process when they get there. It's a whole education.
Right. And that's where I'm going, because all of this is education. Matter of fact, it's interesting you said, because my next question dealt with what I'm seeing here on your website, where it says adult sex education for the 50 plus and fabulous. Now, do you ever get to the situation? Because, I mean, it's one thing whenever we had the big controversy and the debate over sex education in school with kids, but you're talking about now over 50. Do you ever get somebody say, look, I've been doing this since I was in my teens. What I need to be educated about? Do you ever get that?
No, I actually don't. I haven't gotten that. And I will tell you what I find very interesting. Uh, just go back a little bit. In this work, I'm finding that I get to expand my knowledge base. So you spoke about trauma a few minutes ago, and now I'm setting myself up to do a trauma workshop,
Right.
so that I can support people that may come to me with trauma. And there's a number of, I feel like I'm constantly learning on this topic because people may come to me with stress or anxiety. Now, sex education, what is that about? Well, what happens, again, people may lose their partner or, divorce. We spoke into that earlier. The other thing is I have people come to me that may want to improve their sexual practices. So they may, for example, want to improve certain sexual activities like fellatio or hand jobs or whatever that may be, positioning. And I get to support them through that from a clinical perspective, a professional perspective, where it's not perverted, because I find, especially women, they want to be good at their sexual performance to their partner, and I provide a safe space for people to come to me and say, can you support me with this? Or I would like to improve on that.
That's interesting. I mean, and I applaud you as well as the folks who contact you and reach out to you, and actually, because that's not much different from going to a therapist in any other area. And again, because we always put these things in taboo boxes, because like I said, for me, it's just not a taboo topic. And I'm always fascinated because I've had authors on the show who are in churches or religious movements, and they've written books, they've written novels. They don't necessarily have to be Christian books or religious books, but they might be, and they might have a sex scene in there. Mm-hmm. And I've had authors tell me that some of their fellow congregants and pastors and then turned their back on them because of a scene they wrote in a book, or, I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, well, how did everybody have children then? How did the pastors and preachers and deacons and bishops and popes well, not the popes, but I mean, how did they have children?
Yeah. It's an education, and this is where I'm going with this, to bring to remove the shame and the taboo idea away from the sexual practices or the sexual thinking, to shift people's mindset around sex so that they can have a more healthy, normal perspective about sex and feel comfortable sharing about it.
Correct.
It's a big. I'm taking on a big challenge here.
And because I can't. First off, I don't know if the number of folks doing that is a large number, and I'm saying that in relativity. So I don't know if there's a large number and then I don't know if there's a large audience who are willing. I mean, I think these things that we're talking about, people will either say, as Mitt Romney can say, in quiet rooms, or they may have the thoughts to themselves, or they may read about it. But a lot of people are just not comfortable with talking about the various acts, which are not, in my mind, sex ought to be fun. To me, I'm just the type of person that this is something that ought to be. It should not be work. I mean, it shouldn't be something that you feel like it's like an obligation, something that you feel like you must do, you have to do, that, I'm trying to be the good husband or the good wife. It should be something that's natural and fun based on a lot of those things that you said earlier about the romancing, whether it's the little touch or the flirt or the message or the movie or whatever. It should be a byproduct and a part of the relationship just like anything else.
Absolutely. And my goal is to make it fun and normalize it. And
Right.
I feel like it's not normalized right now, only because people have been from childhood shunned for whatever reason. And it's not everyone. Some people comfortably talk about sex and are okay talking about it and sharing about it, and others aren't. It's really challenging from time to time when I want to go into certain environments. For example, active aging adult facilities where adults are living in these, we know them as senior homes.
Right.
They call them active aging communities because people are younger and very active.
Right.
And I get bumped up against a lot to even just get into. There's so many gatekeepers that this would be a great topic, because these people are sexually active, and a lot of them don't know what or how to do whatever they're trying to do, and some of them do. I don't want to take away from the ones that know what they're doing.
No, because I tell you what, that same can be held true for the teenage years. And where I'm going with that is, do you think it's an issue of, because it's such a sensitive or squeamish topic, even for parents in terms of even teaching the topic at home? Now, my parents were very clear. Maybe that's the way I am. They sat me and my sister down at the kitchen table, and they had the sex talk. And they were very, look, we're going to break this down to you in clinical terms, and we're going to break this down to you in street terms. And so they gave us both. They sat me and my sister down in the kitchen. My mother and father was there. Now, I know everybody doesn't have that experience, but that was my experience, how we got introduced to it. I said, this is what you're going to hear for this body part on the street. This is the clinical term, or if you were to go to the doctor, this is the scientific term or whatever. They broke that down for me and my sister. So, like I said, sex for me has never been an issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, so the word vagina or penis or whatever, that was not foreign to us. And right. Then when you get out on the street and they have the various slang terms, so we kind of had like the clinical slang, kind of like the Urban Dictionary, if you will.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And this is an issue. I mean, I have my 11-year-old granddaughter who's about to turn 12, and she's in puberty. And, I myself am like, now, what can I tell her? What shouldn't I tell her? How do you speak about this to children? I feel like it's a level of education to talk. It's a level of educating parents on how to speak to children.
Correct.
For me, I can speak to the adults. It's easy for me to speak to the adults because I know how to speak around the topic and get it to the adults without actually being very vulgar or out there with these terms, right?
Right.
But when I'm talking to a younger child, and I want to thank you for sharing that. That's an approach for me. What you just shared that your parents shared. Yeah,
I can see it now. That's been like over probably like 40 years ago. I can still see them both sitting there going over everything with us. But it was helpful. And I say all that because when I'm not doing radio, I'm an educator as well. Even on the radio, I'm an educator. But my day job, if you will, is working in schools, working with children. And I've had like little 8th grade boys out there thinking they was doing something whenever they've now created a child. Now, at 8th grade, I'm sorry, you do not have the means to become a father or a mother for that matter, financially, this, that, and the other. But they think they've done something. And I said, no, you ain't done. You didn't know what you were doing. Because if you knew what you were doing, even though you had no business doing that, but if you were doing it, if you knew what you were doing, you wouldn't have created a child.
Right.
All you knew was stick it in and pump and go, and you think you've done something, when in the meantime, you've now created another life.
Right.
So
right.
So and I have a couple of kids that come to mind as I say this, but I'm like, oh, you didn't know what you were doing. That's just all to it. That's just now I get it. There are times when accidents occur, so forth and so on, but that's not always the case. Most of the time, it's just you didn't know what you were doing. You weren't educated. You didn't know. All you knew was the mechanics of it.
Right.
And because of that, now we have a child born to a 13-year-old that and particularly in today's times, and I don't even know, financially, because me at this age, if I were to have a child, it would be a financial strain. So now that you were saying now you're going back to the senior population in terms of helping them understand at this, and again, back in the stage again, okay, do you understand, how to do, what to do? Because I mean, in a senior home, you're kind of sort of confined to a degree.
Well, there are there's different populations in the skilled nursing facility, which is the one that requires a lot of support with their population. And then you have the active adult population, which they just choose to live in a community, but they're able to get around and do everything that they do. And someone was sharing with me yesterday that in Florida, the AIDS population has exploded down there because the men are out having unprotected sex and then bringing it back to the women in the community. And can you imagine at 60, 70, 80 years old, on top of, because now you're compromised if you have a chronic disease like diabetes, hypertension, you've had a stroke, or whatever the case is, arthritis. Now you have an autoimmune disease. You have HIV on top of that, or herpes, or gonorrhea, or syphilis. All these things you have with all the medication and all these other things you have to take along with the HIV, having that, and the shame and stigma that comes along with it. So it's a lot going on in this population that gets to be addressed.
No, and absolutely, because I know what the thinking is behind that. The thinking is, in those ages, well, I don't have to worry about pregnancy. So I don't have to worry about pregnancy. So therefore, I can kind of do what I want with who I want, because pregnancy now is no longer an issue when you start getting 50, 60, 70, So, and the other thing is, the thing at this age, that can't happen to me. We're back to the teenage thing again. That's not going to happen to me. So the education piece, you're right, is critical across the board.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why the important part for me for people to understand is confidence, so they can have confidence to talk about and ask for what they want, create an awareness, give them the physical fitness and the education so that they can secure themselves sexually, right? We want them to have the confidence to say to their partner, let's have a real talk. How many partners do you have? What kind of illnesses do you have? Do you have a chronic disease? Do you have a STD? And let me examine your parts to make sure you don't have herpes or anything going on down there.
Right.
And then you can say, if you want to have unprotected sex, let's go get tested together for free. And then I can see your results. You can see my results once I get them. So that this is important, I feel, an important factor for people to do with their partners, not only 50 plus, even before you're 50.
Right.
That's why I say the stuff that the information I'm talking about crosses all age groups, and it's imperative. The education is important. People get to understand too that the education about condoms and safe sex practices that you get to implement, people get to implement, is critical as well. And we didn't even talk about, at this point yet, menopause.
Yeah, that's where we're going next, because that's where my next question was going, based on when we talked a couple of weeks ago when we were setting up the show, that was one of the things we talked about. And that's where I actually was getting ready to go next, was about, all right, now, where does menopause plays a major role when you get to this age group, this bracket that you're talking about? Because even that day we talked, I was shocked to hear the range of years you're saying it could span. And also for you men out there listening, Natascha was sharing with me that men go through menopause too. So yeah, since we're there, let's go on down that road.
Okay, so menopause, like I shared with you earlier, can last from 7 to 14 years. Menopause is a lot of times is frowned upon. I feel people don't want to address menopause or talk about menopause because they associate menopause with getting, quote unquote, getting old. And it is not that you're getting old. People are so in such resistance to it. It's a rite of passage to the, what did you say earlier? To the whatever years of your life you called it.
I call it the middle season, the mid season.
Yes. To the middle season of your life. It's a rite of passage. And the more people resist it, I feel the more issues they have and they don't know. So this is what happens. Perimenopause occurs. And perimenopause is when it starts in your 40s. Usually it could start as early as the 30s. Perimenopause, and it begins to escalate. And what happens, what is menopause? It's when the estrogen in your body begins to reduce. The body produces less estrogen until you no longer have a period. So that's what's happening. And as this occurs over a span of time, people have symptoms. What's the symptoms? Hot flashes. This is the main thing people know about hot flashes, mood swings, and sleepless nights. But there's so many more. And you can have serious mood swings, foggy brain, migraine headaches, cramping in the body, anxiety. The more I read about this, the more I realize this was whatever was occurring for me was occurring when I was in menopause, and I didn't even perimenopause, and I didn't know that. After the perimenopause occurs, menopause happens, and menopause is the year when you do not have the whole year that you've gone through where you didn't have the period, and then there's postmenopause. So there's 3 stages of menopause, and in this process, also with perimenopause and postmenopause, is when the vaginal dryness and atrophy occurs. So people get to understand that there's 50 to 60% of women are suffering in silence with vaginal dryness and atrophy. And that occurs, and that can be treated with HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or it can be treated using a number of holistic products. And someone else was telling me about Ayurvedic methods, and I use coconut oil, and you can use almond oil and sesame seed oil. The oils compromise the condoms. I do want to preference that. However, the skin on the around the labia and the outside of the vagina begins to tear easily because it's thinning, and that's easily treatable by moisturizing the vagina with the out exterior of the vagina with coconut oil, almond oil, and sesame seed oil. You can use one or more of one or whatever works for you, and I would say use it daily on the exterior, and you probably should use a gentle soap to wash that area as well, since certain soaps are drying.
The thing that fascinates me about the whole menopause thing is there's so many symptoms that can be going on that could almost be confusing. It's almost like you have no idea what's going on, yet they're related to the menopause. Like depression is in there, like you said, anxiety, and all these things. You'd think it could be a symptom that's a standalone, not realizing that it's connected to menopause.
Yes, and also most women that go to doctors with the menopause symptoms, 4 out of 5 of them are misdiagnosed or mistreated because the doctors do not associate or are not aware that these issues or conditions are related with menopause. So, for example, one of the things I like to share with people is trauma and menopause are a bad combination. If you've had a trauma of some sort, could be loss of job, death, breaking up in a relationship, a separation, anything that causes a tremendous amount of stress, moving, will, and menopause can throw a person completely off, and you really don't know why you are in this state. What is going on with me? And it's the estrogen, or the lack of estrogen, impacts how people are managing their lives, because the chemistry is off in the body.
So now when you combine that, let's say you have one of these debilitating chronic type diseases such as a diabetes, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, or whatever. Now when you combine that with that, you really got a lot going on.
Yes, you have a lot going on, because estrogen plays a huge role in one's body, in women's body. The estrogen impacts how elastic your blood vessels are in the body. So you have less estrogen, your blood vessels begin to harden. You have less estrogen, it impacts overall functioning of your body. It plays a huge role in keeping balance in the body. So it's imperative that people do activities like exercise, and your diet is key in these factors, because when you are eating a good amount of fruits and vegetables and staying away from the fried foods and the starchy foods and the foods that build a lot of fat in the body, it allows the body to function. So it supports the body in functioning better, because you have a healthy diet and you're exercising. When you exercise, you release certain hormones like serotonin. Again, that's another one of the hormones that's released during exercise, and it helps to flush the body. And when you exercise, it creates elasticity in the blood vessels, because it's rushing through there, it's flushing things out, it's cleaning the body, it's detoxifying the body. So you want to do these activities even when you're in menopause, because it will support you.
See, again, the exercise and the diet, no matter what we're talking about in terms of health, those two things. And again, that's my doctor. Whenever I was pre-diagnosed, that's what she said. I can keep you off medication if you will exercise and change your diet. And I said, Doctor, that's a deal. And sure enough, I did those things. And so far, it's been about 4 or 5 years now. I have not had to go on any type of medication, insulin or anything like that, because I have diligently tried to stay with the diet and exercise. I say all that to say exercise and diet is so critical to everything that goes on in the body. And you just heard Natascha say, even like during the menopausal moments, if you are still pressed through, because I mean, a lot of these things can make you like, I do not feel like exercising.
Right.
That's what it makes you feel like. But you almost have to like press through that feeling regardless.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Making a choice to be off of medication and choosing your health and your life over food. And this is what people don't understand is happening. You're choosing to limit your life instead of eating less, whatever, fried chicken, bread, sodas, and exercising. And you don't have to do a lot. You can go out every day and do a 30 to 40-minute walk.
Correct.
It's a little bit goes a long way with the body. A little bit goes a long way. I wanted to say that twice.
I know that's right. And that's a good point, Natascha, because a lot of times when people hear that, they think this monumental workout routine that you like have to be lifting 200 and 300 pounds of weights and you got to be doing this, that, and the other. When the bottom line is like walking or swimming, those two are kind of like has always been tagged as the best two, as walking and swimming. Those two are the like top two exercises for the body. Yes,
because when you walk, if a person walks for an hour, let's say a person walks for an hour, your elevation, the body is the activity that you've created in your body burns calories for 12 hours. when you walk briskly for an hour. And swimming is low impact. However, it doesn't impact your joints. However, it really supports your body with breathing, and the resistance in the water is very helpful to the body. And as you get older, people they want to do something at ease. And I say swimming is an at ease. You feel it when you get out the pool, but when you're in there, you don't really feel how it's really challenging your body. So it's I love the swimming. It's great for people who have joint arthritis, all this stuff. I have an 85-year-old client, and she swims. She loves swimming, and that's her thing. She swims and works out with me.
Absolutely. I know that's right. But see, again, folks, and I'm saying this to myself as well, the diet and the exercise is critical. And we talked a couple of minutes ago about how men, even though men is not necessarily Natascha's target audience per se, but like she said, it cuts across the board. We were talking a couple of weeks ago, and she said, men have menopause too. Oh, really? So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, men, and not all men. Some men have menopause, and what happens is they have a reduction in their hormones. And once they have a reduction in their hormones, it impacts their emotional, their physical, their whole overall functioning in their bodies. And a lot of that can be arrested with, once again, diet and exercise for men. It's not all men, it's some men. And it does happen. So, and I do work with men. Men call me on the low. They don't work with
right. Say on the low.
When I go speak in a group, the men won't ask questions out loud to me. They'll come to me on the side and say, "So what you do for men? Is there anything you got for men that you do?" And that's and I love it, and I'll chat it up with them about stuff they get to do. And when I speak, and I love speaking, I love to speak to people, speak to organizations and groups, because I have these wonderful exercises where I go in and I work with people, and they do these exercises, and they say, "Oh, that feels so good," and that makes me feel well. And that's attending to their mind, body, their spirit, when they do the meditations or the journaling or the taking the time out to be with themselves in a way where it's quiet and they're still and they're connecting within.
Right. So now the hormone for the men is testosterone, correct?
Testosterone, yes.
Yes. So for women, it's the estrogen. Now, oddly enough, both bodies have a little of each.
Yes.
Males and females each have both. Just one outdoes the other depending on which gender you are.
Yes.
But as Natascha was saying, if you start running low, or some of these chronic illnesses pull those things out of you. Some of these chronic illnesses will reduce your testosterone or your estrogen level. So that's why, again, in terms of really knowing what you have, that's why the annual physicals and all that stuff are so important. Or semi-annuals, I think the older you get, they cut them down to semi-annual. Because it was like, okay, at one point my doctor would say, "Okay, I'll see you next year." Now she's like, "Okay, I'll see you in 6 months." Like, okay, they want to make sure they keep on top of things. And I'm good with that, only because, Natascha, my father passed away 1 week before his 49th birthday of a massive heart attack. Did not see it coming.
Oh, man.
And that, if nothing else motivated me to make sure I keep up with my annuals, that did it for me. I don't miss a one. I don't miss dental, vision, my annual regular. Matter of fact, I'm getting scheduled now for my colonoscopy. I don't miss any of them because I want to know what's going on.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, because I'm doing a course right now that focuses on heart disease, that focuses on strokes. And they talk about in this course how people are walking around with elevated blood pressure and think they can just walk around with it and be like, "I'm okay, I'll handle it, I'm okay,
right.
I'll handle it." And the instructor was even telling us yesterday, when they do these, when you see people out doing blood pressure and all of that, their people's pressure is so high, sometimes they put them in a cab and send them to the hospital.
Right.
So it's important to take care of your health and go to the doctor. And also, I believe, going back to the menopause, male menopause, that when they go to the doctor, they'll know that too, and they experience all of the similar things that women experience. They experience the low energy, the depression, the insomnia, the body fat increase, which women don't like that, and they get what they call gynecomastia. Do you know what that is? That's the male breast.
Right.
They get decreased bone density. They get erectile dysfunction, reduced libido, and infertility. And they're more of this that goes on. The same. It's similar, very similar to women.
No, you're right. As a matter of fact, a lot of people, and now they are because Beyonce's father has it, but a lot of people didn't realize that men get breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Men can get breast cancer as well. Now, I know of a neighbor of mine who passed away, a male of breast cancer. And so now it's at the forefront because Beyonce's father has it.
Mm.
And so now that has really put a spotlight on it. And now more men are like, oh, wait a minute. Well, men can get breast cancer as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes something like that for folks to back to the education thing again, for folks to stand up and realize, no, men can get breast cancer too. So in October, when we're doing Breast Cancer Awareness Month, no, that's not just a female thing because men can get it as well.
Right. And absolutely. It's we get to take care of ourselves. It's not just a woman. These things we're talking about are not just for women. I'm focused on women because I'm a woman and I had some of these experiences. I can speak into it a lot more deeply just because of my own personal experiences that I've had with menopause and experiencing trauma. You know, I had the death of my father and brother in 2015. They died 2 weeks apart from each other.
Wow.
I moved a month later from my apartment of 30 years, and 6 months after that, my son was violently attacked and shot in his arm and almost lost his left arm. So I was in a whirlwind I had no idea what was going on with me. I could barely function. And
it gets crazy how those things hit. And wait, my mother went through that, and my sister has just gone through that. My mother went through that with the loss of her mother and husband within a year. So my grandmother died in 1983. My father died in 1985. So within a year and a half of each other, she lost mother and husband. And in that same year, I was moving out of the house because I was getting married. So you had like all this whirlwind stuff going on at the same time, plus the menopause, because she was in her 40s. She was in her mid 40s at the time when all that hit. And my sister just went through something very similar between being diagnosed with diabetes, the high blood pressure, having to move, the girls moving out the house, coming to empty nest, and all. Everything hit at the same. It's amazing how these things, and they hit about that menopausal time.
And this is why I say that it's imperative that people understand menopause, because if you don't understand what is happening during that process, you caught out there and then you don't know what is going on with me, what is going on. And this is why I want women to experience menopause, embrace it. Like, this is part of my life. This is part of where I am. This is what I'm going to be doing, and let me learn about it.
Correct.
So that I can manage my life, manage myself in a way that I'm safeguarded. So when these things occur, I'm not angry. I also feel like women get angry about it.
Correct.
Or they're in denial about it, and so it's not healthy. The healthy way to deal with this would be to embrace it and know that this is what's occurring, and because it's occurring, I am taking care of myself so that I can be safe. I can know what to do, can have some tools under my belt, and get that this is where I am. I'm depressed. Let me go get some support. Or, I am experiencing vaginal dryness. Let me do this. I'm gaining weight. Let me change my diet and exercising. I'm noticing these changes. I'm having sleepless nights. What do I get to do for that? What do I do for stress? I notice I'm anxious with things that I wasn't having anxiety about before. What do I get to do for that? And let me do that.
This is what I was saying earlier. Each one of them things independently, someone might think it's just that. And menopause is kind of like the last thing they think about.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. This is why the education component about menopause is so key.
Correct.
So I speak about sexual health and sex education, and then there's a whole other topic I speak about, which is menopause, because they are two separate subjects, even though they cross
correct
each other, and both of them have a physical fitness component to it.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, it's amazing because, like I just said, any one of those things in and of themselves, you would think, okay, so for anxiety, let me do something about that. Or depression, let me do something about that. The weight gain, something's going on. But nobody would really peg it back to, wait a minute, all these things could be connected to menopause. Unless, if somebody's listening to this broadcast, some of those things might be going on with you. You might, if you haven't already done so, you might want to check to see, is what you call the peri. The first one was a peri.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then you had the menopause, then you had the post. You could be it just amazed me when you said from 7 to 14 years.
Yes.
That's a long time.
And it's because people are not acknowledging or are not aware that they're in menopause in their 40s. And this whole process is a slow process that takes place with the body. It seems about right. If I look at how my granddaughter started puberty probably at the end of 7 years old, and she's 11, and I figure in the books it says that puberty ends at about 14, but I think puberty ends about between 18 and 21. If you ask me, I think the numbers are off there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be that. I honestly believe the numbers do shift. I think whatever the research number was at one point, I think they've shifted one way or the other. Either it's shorter or longer, one or the other. I don't necessarily think it's in that range that they've reported. I think that's an old number. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. So in terms of, men, I'm going to go back to for the ladies, encourage your men in terms of getting these checkups as well, because men in general tend not to go to doctors. Ladies, for the most part, they will they may not know what it is, but they at least willing to go to the doctor. For the most part, the males historically are not one to run to the doctors for a lot of reasons. And if you're in the African-American community, there's a whole bunch of different set of reasons that go along with why you don't go to doctors and so forth and so on. But I encourage you all to do go. Get those prostate exams. I mean, this is the thing that cracks me up, Natasha. Whenever you all go to the gynecologist, you all are wide open. And then the man has to go to the doctor and get a prostate exam, and they have a fit. Oh, they've been violated, this and that. Well, how do you think the women feel whenever they have to get their exam? But when they're in stirrups and so forth and so on. So, do what you have to do. Don't die because you're ashamed to get a prostate exam or a colonoscopy or to talk about whatever's going on. And that goes both ways, males and females. Share whatever's going on, because again, back to where I started the discussion, all this is a part of our human bodies. Now, it may have been perverted, it may have been taken to the gutter in different ways, but the fact of the matter is all these things are bodily functions, no different from, you having to defecate or urinate or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's still a part of bodily functions. Now, we're heading down to the end of the interview, but this is a question. When folks realize what it is or learn of what it is that you do, folks that are, the mind automatically go to the gutter, do they automatically associate what you do with promiscuity or being a freak or this, that, and the other? Or do they think you're an easy target if it's a male coming on to you because you do that? Do you have that experience, or did you have that experience?
I haven't had any of those experiences. I do sometimes from when I'm posting stuff on social media. I do have some men, they inbox me and they start talking to me, and I could tell based on how they're talking if it's going one way, but I learned how to keep it very clinical.
Right.
How to keep it very clean and keep the focus on it. And, you know, I'll talk to people about things. Do you want to have a consultation? You know, have a complimentary or free consultation with me? And they're like, well, I'm a married man. And I'm like, well, that's great. Why don't we
bring your wife?
How whatever you're concerned about can support you with your
Right.
marriage and your sex life, you know, because it's not, you know, this is no, you know, call me and we going to do something. No,
Right.
Call me. We are going to do something. It's going to be about how you're going to get your sex life in order so you can work with your partner, but we're not having any kind of interaction.
Correct.
Other than professional.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So like I said, we're pretty much down to the end, and this has been an informative interview. I do record them, so it will be posted on my YouTube channel as well, and you'll get a copy of the link, and you can do whatever you like with it. But at this point, I be quiet. I shut the mic off, and I let you promote. Now, you can promote your services, your websites, your newsletters, and your mailing list, anything with the exception of a dollar amount. That's the only thing we can't mention on the air, because that you can work out when folks reach out to you and contact you. So at this point, if you have any books, any blogs, podcasts, anything you want to let the audience know about Natascha Hardee at this point, I'm off for the next couple of minutes and you get a chance to promote.
Great. So I have a gift for the listeners today. They can go to sexabilitycoach.com and download free tips that I have for people who want to improve their sex life, their romance. If they have some things they want to work on, I think about 8 or 9 tips on there. So it's sexability. The word is one word, so it's sex and ability. So SEXABILITY, coach.com. And in exchange for your email, you will get a download of tips. And you can find me on LinkedIn at Natascha Hardee. And I want you all to know that I am the Chief Wellness Officer of Hardee Life, because you all deserve a Hardee life. I want to also let you know I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram at Hardee Life. My last name is spelled HARDEE, Life, Hardee Life, and on Facebook at Hardee Life. Again, you can contact me, and I will offer you all a consultation. Anyone who's interested, you can email me at info@NataschaHardee.com. That's info, INFO, at NataschaHardee.com. Yes, you can do that, and give me an email. Send me a message, and I will give you a consultation, a complimentary 30-minute consultation regarding your concerns. I speak, so if you would like to have me come out and speak at your organization, contact me at my email address, or you can contact me at 646-207-2454. That's 646-207-2454. And we will talk, and I will be happy to come to your organization and speak about sexability, which is where I teach adult sex education to women over 50, then empower them to have a passionate, juicy 10 sex life through exercise, education, and fun. And men are welcome to come also, so that they can find out information in that workshop how to support their partners. And again, sexability is for heterosexuals, for LGBTQ, and everyone in between, men and women. I don't discriminate. I just love to educate. So
I know that's right.
You all can contact me again. My name is Natascha Hardee of Hardee Life, because you deserve a Hardee life. My phone number is 646-207-2454. That's 646-207-2454. And you can email me at info@NataschaHardee.com. That's NataschaHardee.com.
All right, where are you calling out of?
I'm in Harlem.
Oh, in New York. Oh, so you're on the Eastern time zone as well. Okay, good. So sometimes my guests call from the West Coast. There is like 4 o'clock in the morning over there. And so I'm glad you're at least in the same time zone. So it's early, but it's not as early as it could have been depending on where you are in the country. So I thank you for rising early to join me. And folks, you need to understand sex does not have to stop just because you are getting older. I did a podcast episode a couple of episodes ago about this whole notion of, it was around my birthday, as a matter of fact, in August. I don't understand why folks are ashamed of their age. I have no problem with saying I'm 57 because, first off, I'm thankful to God that I'm still alive. I just shared with you that my father died 1 week before his 49th birthday, so I'm already past him. Now, my mom just turned 81, so I'm trying to catch her. And I say my goal is to be 100 and healthy. They're not 100 and drooling and carrying on, 100 and healthy. And so, but it kind of, mystifies me in terms of, I get the vanity thing, I get the ego thing, I get that, but at the same time, just be grateful that you're alive, whatever age you are. And things do not have to stop just because you cross over 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 or 100. Every day I look on Facebook or on one of the social media sites, I see somebody else who's 100 plus, and that gives me inspiration. I'm like, yes, it's possible. I saw, I think the other day, a lady was 100, I think she was the oldest living person in the country or world or something, 114 years old. I said, you go, Mom.
Absolutely. That's definitely an aspiration, and we can get there. All we have to do is change our diets and exercise and change our mindset, and it will really, really support us. And I would like to thank everyone who got up early to listen and take the time out of their morning, their sleep time, to hear what I have to share. I appreciate you all. You could have been doing anything else, and you took the time to listen, and I thank you so very much.
And I could not agree with Natascha more. I thank you as well. And Natascha, thank you for an informational and an educational session. Listening audience, again, that is my goals during the show, is to educate, entertain, motivate, inspire, inform. And I think we did a little bit of all of that this morning as I chatted with Natascha. Again, that sex is not dirty. I need folks to really understand that sex is not a dirty word. The act of sex in and of itself clinically is not dirty. It isn't, and somehow we always kind of shove that into, ooh, that's nasty. Ooh, that's like, no, sex is not nasty. And no, sex is not dirty when done in a proper context. And what Natascha was talking about this morning was the proper context and how you can do that longer in your lives. She also shared with you how the older population is the fastest growing population with these sexually transmitted diseases. That in and of itself says something. So, yeah, we all need to be educated regardless of the age, because like I said earlier, quoting Bob Proctor, fire can cook your meal or it can kill you. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Natascha, again, thank you. We'll be in touch. I will email you. You will be on my YouTube channel probably before the weekend is out. And we'll share that whenever we can. For those who did not choose to get up early, they can still hear the archive version.
Thank you. And I appreciate you for having me on your show. And thank you to your lovely guests, your listeners, I should say.
All right. Thank you, and have a wonderful day and week and Thanksgiving and everything else. All right?
You too. And I want to tell everyone, if no one told you that they love you today, let me be the first to tell you that I love you, and have a hearty life, because you deserve a hearty life.
Oh, that's right. Matter of fact, since you said that, I'm going to let you go. But I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Somewhere, and I said it in the 6 o'clock hour, when I go on Ancestry.com and I look at census data and I look at all the various certificates, and like I said, my grandmother's maiden name was Hardee. It is spelled all three ways: Hardie, Hardee, Hardy. So depending on which record you're looking at, so there might be some relation somewhere in there.
Yes. indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. Take care now.
All right.
All right.